Thank you. Just a reminder to everyone, when you speak, if you can just say who you are before you speak, that would be great so that everybody has full access. And if we can refrain from trying to speak over people, you can either use the raise hand function, physically raise your hand, send me a chat message, or if none of those are accessible to you, wait for a break in conversation to let me know that you would like to speak. But otherwise, let's dive in. Welcome. Adrian, do you want to introduce Sarah?
Oh, sorry, I'm muted. Sure thing. Thank you, Chair Dennis. I would like to introduce Sarah Nickerman. Sarah is with the DPPC and will be spending 10-15 minutes with the group talking about the DPPC and what they offer. I know Sarah from my previous role at Massachusetts Advocates Standing Strong, and she is reaching out not only to this commission, but other commissions to share about the DPPC. So I will turn it over to her. Wonderful. So I will turn it over to Sarah, and Sarah, you are able, I believe, to share your screen for anything you want to share.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and share here. Thanks for the intro. Like Adrian said, I'm from the Disabled Persons Protection Commission, or the DPPC, and we'll be talking a bit about what the DPPC is and about our abuse reporting hotline. We've been doing outreach to commissions around the state, trying to get folks aware of just who we are, in case any of you ever have reason to make a report of abuse, and so that you can then send that information to other people in Somerville or other people that you're connected to, because we're trying to get the word out mostly to the general public. So the DPPC is an independent state agency responsible for investigating abuse by caregivers against adults with disabilities. So by adult, we're talking about age 18 to 59. With a disability, we mean anybody who needs assistance with some or all of their daily living needs. And caregivers can be professionals, they can be family members, anybody who is helping that person meet some of those daily living needs. This is how we fit in with some other agencies that you might be familiar with from an age perspective. So if the victim is younger than 18, that report of abuse would go to the Department of Children and Families, or DCF, and their number is at the bottom here as well, 1-800-792-5200. If they're 18 to 59 and they do have a disability, that report comes to us. And if they're age 60 plus, that report goes to the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, and you can call them at 1-800-922-2275. Okay. If you do suspect abuse of an adult with a disability, you would call this number. This is our abuse reporting hotline. I recommend writing this number down or putting it in your phone, whatever is going to make it available to you if you ever need it. So that number is 1-800-426-9009. You can also find that on our website if you Google, DPPC Massachusetts. It's also on the bottom right of every slide on this presentation. You would call this number even if you have no proof that abuse is happening. The standard for reporting in Massachusetts is just reasonable cause to believe that abuse is happening, which you can also think about as suspicion, right? So suspicion is not, I am 100% sure, I have proof, I have evidence, I've conducted my own investigation. Suspicion is just, I think that something is happening here, okay? And it's okay to be wrong. And it's okay to call the number and find that, it's out of our jurisdiction, we weren't able to investigate it. We'll just send that report where it needs to go. So I'd always err on the side of reporting. When you call that number, the person on the other end of the line is going to ask you a few basic questions. What happened, when, where, who was involved? Give them as much information as you have. If you don't know the answer to something, it's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to say it over and over again. We had someone report once and all they had was a license plate number, and we were still able to do that investigation and figure out what happened. Okay. So this is kind of the process once you do call in. The person at the other end of the hotline is going to send that report where it needs to go. So the first place they might send it is to an investigator. This investigator might be from DPPC or from one of our partner agencies, DDS, DMH, MRC. They are civil investigators, not criminal. So their job is fact-finding. They're conducting interviews, they are reviewing evidence, and they're trying to figure out what happened. And if they find that yes, abuse did happen, they can make these protective services recommendations. So these are recommendations to either support the victim to move on from the abuse, things like counseling, healthcare, peer support, transportation, or to prevent future abuse. So that can look like recommending respite services for a caregiver who is just overwhelmed, staff training, policy changes, or staffing ratio changes for a professional caregiver who is maybe doing what they were told to do, but someone still got hurt. So we need to look at how things are being done in the policies and the procedures. Or agency action. DPPC cannot fire people. We don't have the authority. But the agencies that are employing these professional caregivers are often looking at our investigation to figure out what they should do. Should they keep this person or should they terminate them? We also have a new abuser registry. So if somebody who is working with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities has been found to have committed abuse, they can get put on this registry, and then they will not be allowed to turn around and get a different job with that same population. So this is to prevent people from abusing someone over here and then doing it again somewhere else. So in addition to the civil investigator, the hotline person might also send it to other agencies, DCF or EOEA, if the age range is a bit different than what we can do, DPH, other agencies like that. We also have a state police detective unit housed at DPPC that is screening all of the reports that come in for criminal abuse, and they can conduct a criminal investigation alongside our civil one. And that just makes sure that there's more communication and information sharing between those two groups. Finally, we have a sexual assault response unit. They are screening every report that comes in for sexual abuse, and they can work directly with survivors to get them the resources and support that they need. I briefly want to mention mandated reporters. Anybody can and should make a report of abuse when you suspect that it's happening, but mandated reporters are specific people who are legally required to make that report based on their profession. Okay, so I mentioned this in case anybody on the call is a mandated reporter, or if you know any groups of mandated reporters in Somerville that would benefit from a training on mandated reporting. Okay, so these are folks like healthcare workers, teachers, police officers, and anyone working directly with people with disabilities on kind of a daily basis. So this is our flyer for our trainings. I'm happy to, send that out if anybody wants a copy. They can contact us and we can set something up. And this is my contact information. So my email is there if anybody wants to reach out, wants more materials, wants to schedule a separate training, or has additional questions. I'm also happy to answer any questions right now if we still have the time for it.
Excuse me, I don't know whether I'm allowed to speak or not. This is Pauline.
This is Bonnie. Hi, Pauline. Do you have something related to this?
Yes, I have a question.
Great. And then after you call in, I see a raised hand.
Are blind people, what's the word I want? Excluded from this? Because we have a disability as well, and it doesn't seem that the agencies that Sarah listed encompass that.
Mm-hmm. So blind people would be included if they need assistance with some of those daily living needs. Certainly some people who are blind are perfectly able to take care of everything without assistance. And then because DPPC is only looking at abuse by caregivers, if somebody doesn't need a caregiver or doesn't have one, then they wouldn't fall under DPPC.
Okay, thank you.
This is Bonnie. Thank you, Pauline, and thank you, Sarah. Colin, I'm just going to chime in because I had a related thing and then you. So Sarah, you mentioned the registry was for caregivers of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Is that solely who it's for? And I'm curious on why the distinction.
Yes, so right now it is only for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and specifically for caregivers that are working with the Department of Developmental Services in some way. That's because the registry is very new. It only started this past July, and we're hoping to expand it, but we had to start at a more limited place to get it, through the legislature.
Thank you. So Colin and then Jamie.
Thank you so much for the presentation, Sarah. I'm also ED at Disability Policy Consortium, and one of our board members had reached out to ask why DPPCs didn't cover people who were both disabled and over 60, and what should occur in cases where abuse of people in that population occurred.
Yeah, so the reason is just that there are different agencies for different age ranges. It's been like that since these agencies were created. So if somebody is over 60 and has a disability, that would still go to the Executive Office of Elder Affairs or EOEA. So they cover folks over 60, whether they have a disability or not.
Gotcha. And do you work with them on sort of how to appropriately investigate potential abuse against disabled seniors?
We are currently working on a couple different projects that are a little broader in scope, one national, one more on a state level, to get people more information on working with people with disabilities at all ages. And we're working with EOEA and similar agencies on both of those.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Jamie?
This is Jamie Perconti. I have a couple of questions. First, I want to clarify. So is DPPC only oversight for professional caregivers? Like many people with disabilities have people in their families that take care of them, or otherwise people who are not, doing it professionally?
Mm-hmm. It is any caregiver, does not have to be professional, as long as that person is helping them with some of their daily living needs. Often that is a family member and often is unpaid.
Okay. So is the commission able to recommend services if the situation is not determined to be abuse?
Generally not. Those protective services are typically for when we do find that abuse happened.
Are you able to put people in need in touch with the appropriate organizations, or what happens in a circumstance like that?
We do a lot of connecting people with relevant resources and relevant agencies.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Liam?
Hi, this is Leon. I just had a quick question about mandated reporters. I know you had the list of various people who would be considered mandated reporters, and things like school teachers. And I was just curious: is a mandated reporter a mandated reporter for all contexts, or would someone like an elementary school teacher be a mandated reporter for specifically child abuse, but not other things?
It would be for specifically adults with disabilities. So being a mandated reporter for DPPC does not automatically make them a mandated reporter for DCF, for child abuse.
Okay.
A lot of the professions are mandated for both, but it's not complete overlap.
Okay. And is that just by profession, or is that a, like, there is a, you have to get like certified as a mandated reporter?
For DPPC, it's just by profession. I know some other agencies differentiate between whether you're licensed or not, but for us, it's just based on what your job duties are, even includes interns and volunteers.
Okay, so so DPPC mandated reporter is not necessarily the same thing as like hearing about a mandated reporter at a school kind of thing.
Right.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
This is Bonnie. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah, for this presentation. And we did send the material out earlier, but if anybody didn't receive it and wants a copy, myself or Adrian would be happy to send it out again. The agenda is pretty packed, so I'm going to move us along. Next, we have Jeff Dugan from the Mass Office on Disability. And I am going to see if I can give you screen sharing, or actually I'm not seeing. Adrian, can you?
I was already made a, I guess, a co-host, so I could share my screen. So I'm going to share
Great.
and go over. First, let me just start with hi. I am glad to be here. I'm Jeff Dugan, the Assistant Director for Community Services at the Massachusetts Office on Disability. So one of my duties here is meeting with commissions and going over some of that. And I wanted to make sure I'm on target, Bonnie, for keeping up with the time, because I know you do have a very packed agenda. So I'm going to go over some of the critical documents I think that I would like to share with the commission. And I also want to offer some times for questions and answers, should there be any related to it. I just want to validate a couple things. It looks like Somerville has adopted both the Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 8J, which formally establishes a Commission on Disabilities, as well as setting up the revolving account under 22G. Is that correct? Do you collect parking fines from?
This is Bonnie. So the city council did approve that earlier this year.
Okay.
We are in the process of figuring out administratively how to work with the city on that. And at the bottom of today's agenda, we'll be touching on how we might use those funds. And we expect to have a more robust discussion next month on that.
Okay. And when you get into that discussion, if you have any questions about what the monies can be used for, by all means, reach out. I will chat with you. Basically, it has to be used for the public, for usually municipal projects or municipal related types of things, because of the anti-aid agreements and stuff like that, where public funds being used for private. But there is a little bit of a cutout if you are going to benefit all the businesses in Somerville for the public good. You could use it towards public good if that was the outcome as well. So if you have some creative ideas, and be creative, because I know the Situate Commission that I serve on, we've been doing a lot of assistive technology for the library and what they call the library of things and stuff like that. So we've also been buying adaptive equipment. So we're buying a True Grit wheelchair for our trails. And we're actually, because one of the applicants from our ADA improvement grant program was applying for that. And I saw that and we're like, we have about $4,000 or $5,000. It might be a good thing to invest in. So we're doing it for ours. And we have invested in like beach mats and beach wheelchairs and things like that, because we're on the coast. So there's some very good and creative and outreaching and good feeling kind of initiatives you can do with that. So, but we'll chat if you need. I also want to just, because I don't think I've been to the Somerville Commission before. I don't have any records of it, and I've been with MOD since about 2000. So can you just remind me, Bonnie, because I've got a lot of commissions I'm working with recently. How old is the commission, or how old is the membership? Is it a new membership, or?
So I have been on the commission. Colin could probably tell you better than I can, but I want to say 3 or 4 years. And
Okay.
Colin's been around for quite some time and is not currently a commission member because of term limits, but will be voted back in as an associate commissioner this evening. And Leon and oh, Katie's not here, but there's a couple of folks that have been here for about 2 years. And Brian as well, I think, has been here about 2.5 years. And then Holly is pretty new. So it varies.
All right. So, but it's a newer, when I say newer commission, you weren't around in the 1980s, right?
The commission's been around since the 90s, I
Oh,
believe.
okay. Okay. So it has been around
But
for a bit. Okay.
but has gone through a long period of stagnancy prior to the past few years.
Okay, all right. So that actually leads me to a very good conversation I want to have about the materials I'm sharing. Is that all
Can I
right?
just pause you for
Okay.
1 second? I see Colin, did you want to add to
Oh,
that?
it's fine. I would say, Jeff, I think I first met you around 2014, and I was at the time the new kid on the commission, and
Oh, yeah.
there were people at then who I think had been on in one form or another since the 90s.
Okay, so Somerville's been active. It's just there's times where it goes defunct a little bit or membership dries up a little bit. I mean, that's always a battle with commissions on disabilities is finding the volunteers to serve, because it is a big stretch, and making the membership fit. So that's tough as well. But hopefully with Somerville, you have a good laundry list of people that want to serve and want to volunteer their time on a commission on disabilities, where you can fill those seats accordingly. But the materials I'm going to go over with you, and you can share this, Bonnie, tomorrow. I'll send us all to tomorrow. And there's going to be additional items on that list that I'm not going to be able to get to today. So this list is primarily kind of an orientation packet that new commissions or new members should kind of get in their portfolio as they join or work with or start their work on a commission on disabilities. So I want to show you, and you'll get this, it's about 18 or 19 documents. Everything's going to be emailed to you tomorrow. They will have all the links and everything will be there. So there's only one physical attachment, and that is for when we get to some tax incentives that are still available for small business, for architectural barrier removal, or for communication access. So if a business needs to provide a cart reporter or ASL or produce stuff in Braille, a small business with, I think it's 30 employees or fewer, or not, and did not make over $1 million last year. So it's I think it's it's not an and, it's an or. So you could have 100 employees but make under $1 million, you'd qualify. You could have 50 employees and make $10 and you wouldn't qualify. So that's it. So, but there's a tax deduction off the bottom line for architectural barrier removal as well as communication access. So it's a really useful tool for commissions to do some outreach and reaching out to small business if that's part of the work you want to do. So let me share my screen, and don't mind me. This is okay. Let me minimize this first before I share. Oh, well, that doesn't work. Okay. I promise you, I do know how to use this, I think. So just give me 1 minute while I share. I just didn't want to show everyone's, oh yeah, let me share that. And I'm just sharing my screen. So I am going to now try to pull up my Outlook, and I don't know where that is. So let me, what happened here? Oh, did I share? I shared my screen. Well, that's interesting. Let me stop because I don't think this is working. Where did it go? I'm so sorry, people. Just give me a moment. Okay, now this should work. I apologize. I've done this 100 times and now it's just coming back to do it. So let's see here. We got this and we got this. Okay, perfect. So what I'm hoping is that people are able to see or be able to, on the screen, there should be a lot of tabs and things like that that are looking at certain documents and different items. The first one that's on the screen here, and I'm going to try to scroll in a little bit so it's a little larger. I just wanted to touch upon that with the units and the community services unit that I serve, that I work in, we are setting up trainings for commissions on disabilities. I'm sorry, for community access monitor trainings, which is a 2-day training. We're holding them virtually this year. I just wanted to show you that there is a March 22 update that we have scheduled 3. We have one in June, one in September, and one in November. This is a 2-day training that teaches people how to assess a building's history and understand the building's responsibility under the various architectural codes, as well as kind of getting a nice overview of the ADA in its various titles, as well as an overview of some disability rights laws. So it's a very useful training to go to. And since they're virtual, they are free. And if you're interested, I do see an Ashley Santana up here, ashley.santana@mass.gov if you're interested in attending. This link will be shared with you tomorrow to make sure that you get a link directly to this page so you can see it. And it talks about the in-person and virtual, but this year they're all virtual due to COVID and just our comfortability doing that. And finally, I did want to share that we are starting up Regional Commission on Disability meetings again. You will get a link on this page as well. However, I have yet to update it, which I'm going to, but we are scheduling 3 Regional Commission on Disability meetings, one for the east side of Massachusetts, one for the west side of Massachusetts, and can you imagine one in the middle of Massachusetts? So we're going to have 3 here. I think Andover's going to host the east side. I think Worcester's going to host the central. And then we're going to have, I think, Pittsfield or Adlib, one of the independent living centers out there, host the west side of Massachusetts. So for you guys, probably would make sense for the East Coast, for the East one, for the Andover one, and that's coming up in, I believe, June. So I will be updating this page tomorrow, though. The reason I'm telling you that is this is great learning opportunities that we offer from MOD. We're actually doing more and more trainings as we develop these. And I just wanted to show you our page that we have for trainings and events. And again, I'm not going to scroll too fast, but we have employment workshop series that people can sign up for. We have an upcoming level up on equality that's going to be for municipal ADA coordinators that our GC is going to provide. And we try to do those, once or twice or 3 times a year. We've got some work experience stuff. We've got our emergency preparedness trainings continuing, our CAM trainings. So you can see that there's a lot of trainings we offer that we've increased to offer, and we'll offer additional trainings as we go because we now have a new communications and training coordinator. So I want to show you just briefly the MOD brochure. This is again going to be included there. We've got different trainings again listed over in the more information section. You've got our ways you can follow us on our web, Twitter, blog, and YouTube, and some of our major functions and duties and where these play out. So I just wanted to share that with you. I want to move this. Do I hide the panel? Hide video panel. Nope, that's not right. Show video panel. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to. Okay, perfect. Because I want to get to the tabs underneath. So let me start first with some of the general laws that you've adopted, because this is always something you would want to have on hand, at least as a commission, to know what you've got here. And I'm assuming Somerville adopted HA in a way that is similar to this. So it's it is something that Somerville would enact and did at, I think, probably trying to remember, it wouldn't have been town meeting, but it would have been city council. In section HA is just lays out the groundwork for commissions, as well as lays out the membership, lays out the goals and objectives of a commission, as well as how the makeup of the commission and the terms for the commissions. The one thing I do want to say, which is kind of unique, which I am only bringing this up because I've seen this in our local town. We've had a couple of these in the recent years where we've been donated money from somebody who's passed away, with that money earmarked for specific disability related tasks that they had earmarked for it. So a commission may receive gifts of property, both real and personal, in the name of the city or town, subject to the approval of city council or board of selectmen, depending on which form of government. And it is managed and controlled by the commission as well. So that isn't a separate general law. It's just something that tacked on at the end of 8J under the Mass General Laws. So it's a good thing to keep on hand. I promise you I'll take a break in just a moment to see if there are questions so far, because I want to make sure I'm not missing that as well as I present. I just wanted to show you the other one that you got that has Somerville has adopted. And it's section 22G, which allows some or all of the parking fines that are collected for people illegally parking. So that's the $100 to $300 fine. And funds are then deposited into a separate account, really a special account that revolves from year to year and doesn't revert back. And it allows the commission to use that monies. They make the recommendations for the use of those monies. Obviously, for the in here it does dictate or talks about for the sole purposes of benefiting people with disabilities. And once they make that recommendation, the city would determine whether that is a legal use of the money, like private funds for public or public funds for private business. They probably wouldn't, because it's not financially, it's not something under the financial system that would be allowed. But typically, once you make the recommendations, it's pretty much a standard process for them to accept it and then move it on. Sometimes it's just line item to line item from one department to another. But it's again, these two establishing legislation here under 8J and the parking fines under 22G are just really good, useful things to have in your guide. Let me just pause here for a second. I don't even, again, I can't see if hands are raised, and if somebody is monitoring, just to make sure if there is, I can stop or interrupt me. I'd be sure. So.
This is Bonnie.
Yes.
I saw Holly raise her hand, and then I've got a question after Holly.
Okay, so let's start right back in. Sure.
Hi, Jeff. It's nice to see you again.
Oh, yeah, I seen you.
I have a question. You said 8J most likely was adopted by the city. if you choose to adopt this piece, is it in its entirety, or is a city or municipality allowed to edit?
So it's my understanding that this is it's an enabling statute. So a town can choose to take it on as part of their local zoning or bylaws. It's my understanding that limitedly, they can't change the purpose, but you can definitely solidify certain things. For example, when we talk about the 5 to 9 members, or now it's 5 to 13 members, some towns have opted to make it 7, and that's a hard and fast number. Some towns have, and I'm trying to think, this is to get it off the top of my head. Some towns have put some restrictions in here that I'm not sure would fly muster, but has passed through, because this is adopted either through city council or town meeting. So I think it's Attorney General, right? Or the Secretary of State will validate those adoptions and make sure they were adopted legally and appropriately and stuff like that. So if Somerville did adopt it, it did go through that vetting process. So I don't think too much of it would change, other than maybe setting up specific numbers or other local kind of things, like they will meet every 2 weeks, or some other conditions that they placed additionally in there, without changing too much of this.
And some of this seems to also be incorporated in our bylaws, which the commissioners have the ability to modify. Is
Definitely.
that typical to see that similarity?
Definitely. You're actually going to see one of these, and I'm going to show you sample bylaws that you could use if you've not already used them that we have. But these 6 goals that are here, we've expanded it to 10 under our guidance. And you can, this is really the role of the Commission on Disabilities, to research local problems, to coordinate and carry out programs, to work with MOD and to write recommendations about policies. There's a lot of things here that a commission can do. And we've built that out. We'll get to that exactly in the next document that I'm going to share with you, because that's where we're going to spend a majority of our time. The rest of the things I have here are just bonus kind of benefits for commissions, and I'll touch upon them more quickly. So, and one of the items is talking about setting up your own bylaws, and I believe you guys have probably already done it, but I'm just going to show it and share it with you as well. Anyways, does that answer, Holly? Is that okay? Okay, and Bonnie, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. So I just had a question about, usage of the parking funds. I think you can speak to your own commission, and possibly you've worked with others. Do you tend to go with, this is what we're going to spend for the year, or is it more when a project or potential project comes up, you run it by city council to make sure that it's within, the legal confines, and you do it as a one-off basis? I'm just curious the approach to how that money is spent.
So oftentimes it's departments. They've kind of learned that the Situate Commission on Disability has some funding available. So we've had some departments approach us proactively to say, hey, we're the library, we have library of things. We could really use some iPads because they have great accessibility features built in, and we have these things we can do with it. And they will come to us and ask us, and we'll look at what our balance is currently and how that plays out. We oftentimes, though, towards the middle of the year, we will start to look as a commission and come up with ideas on how to expend this money on our own, because we've got a bunch of things. One, we also have a budget from the town that we are able to use for training purposes, to train members, to buy some resources for the commission for carrying out its business, as well as for events. We actually have an event fund because we're going to be doing a Disability Awareness Day, hopefully this year. So we're starting to plan that on our commission. So that actually is not touched by the 22G funds, which it could, as long as you can make the argument that it's going to benefit people with disabilities. And it's doing an educational fair, doing the work of the commission technically is benefiting the community. So if you needed to get something like buy a smart level for the Commission on Disabilities to go out and measure slopes more accurately, that is something that will benefit the city, but it's from the commission. So using those funds could potentially be used for that, because it will benefit everybody. And where was I going with that? I was going with that we kind of have both that come in this year, or this round, at least this I'm trying to think, from January, really, we've been looking at getting ready for springtime. So that's why we've been looking at the Grit wheelchair, which will pretty much reduce our 22G fund a fair amount. but it's a really good tool and really good device because Situate's been doing a lot of developing of their outdoor recreation areas. So we're hoping that that's going to benefit people once they know it's available. So yeah, so it's kind of the both, kind of a mix. And you being as a larger city, though, you once departments know of this, and depending on what your fund builds to, and in reality, our commission, we collect, we don't collect a whole lot. At the end of the year, we might have $6,000 or $7,000. Although we've seen an uptick of handicap parking fines during COVID. I can't explain it, but people are parking illegally during COVID and getting ticketed. So I'm not sure why, but so you guys might see a huge influx, and depending on what your agreement is with the city, sometimes there's a negotiation on on what comes back to the commission. But I don't know what the fine is currently for the parking illegally. Is it a 100 or 200? And you may not even know yet. So
this is Bonnie. I'm not certain. I think it's 200, but I would have to look at that.
Okay.
I know that there's a substantial balance, but we have not seen the breakdown of yearly at this point.
Okay.
But
all right.
Thank you. Let's move into.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Let me get to the big document that I really want to focus on, which is going to be, these are local officials guides. It's good for just quick synopsis. It also shows you, by the way, how the fines are, how it actually ends up at the commission. So while you're not going to be adopting these two, because you've already done it, or even appointing members, but the best on the back side of this slide of this, what I'll be sharing with you, talks about the flow, the workflow for how funds get from officer writing tickets to the Commission on Disabilities line item for that. So it's a good, useful tool there. Benefits, again, just a nice handout for new members or people interested in serving. Disability rights laws. Did I forget where that went? Let me figure out where it is. I promise you it is. Okay, I'm going to stop here and go find that document again. But disability rights laws in Massachusetts, another great resource. It's actually being updated, but it lists a lot of the various laws. And let's say you were curious about the Massachusetts Disabled Person Protection Act. You could click on this and you will find, here's their establishing statute with a nice summary underneath. And this is how you could reach them. So we do that in everything from abuse to wheelchair lemon laws to automobile incentives and things like that. So it's a great resource to share, especially if you're asked about something that you may not be an expert on. You could at least delve into here to see if there's certain areas of information. And good, I found the document. So let me zoom in a little bit so we can all see this. This document here, or at least see it clearly. And again, this material, all of these things will be shared after the event. So on this is an old document. I actually need to update the other director. Our new director is Mary Mahan McCauley, and she's been with us for about two and a half years at this point. She came from MRC. David D'Arcangelo was our former director who went to Mass Commission for the Blind. But these still hold true. So the first page is really some applicable laws that we've kind of already touched upon, and the reasons and rationale for having an advisory board like a Commission on Disabilities within a community. But as we go further on, we have from page 2 on, we'll have some sample operating bylaws, and these are relatively old, but they're really cookie cutters, and you just want to make sure that they are consistent, because I have found in here where we talk about meetings will be held 6 times a year, where that probably doesn't make sense for, at least for Somerville, and even now, even for smaller communities, they're usually meeting about 10 times a year and taking off the summer months for the heat and the winter months for the cold or for the holidays, stuff like that. So, but these are and can be used if you, I believe you guys have already created your bylaws, so this might be kind of moot, but if you think you might have missed something, well, it's a way to bolster it or build it up if you want to revisit that. Again, this is right from pretty much the law itself. So we tried to expand it out a little bit further and make sure it's like item by item. So this is what would show up right from the, this is language almost right out of the general law itself. And when Bonnie, I think, or Holly was mentioning it before, the bylaws that have been adopted kind of adopt it like this, but it's right from HA, from the HA law. Membership, there is a membership makeup, and for the initially, again, you're beyond this. So now it's a 3-year terms for members. The membership is made up of, I'm sorry, there's, and again, for this one, they were looking at 7 members, but again, that's a fluid number depending on your commission. But the majority of members shall consist of people with disabilities to serve on the commission. 1 member may be the member of an immediate family or a person of a person with a disability, and one member shall either be an elected or appointed official in the city or town. So those particular seat makeups are one of the things that kind of have to be adhered to, which can be difficult for commissions to fill those seats with, majority being people with disabilities, and one being the family member, and then one member being elected or appointed official. Just in small towns, it's sometimes difficult to get volunteers. Hopefully in Somerville, you're not finding that difficult to fill some of the vacant seats that may come up. So it seems like you have a pretty good system, right? You have associates that kind of are in the background, and maybe once a seat opens up, they may be able to fill that. I'm not sure how that works on your commission. But we've seen that happen in other commissions where they're grooming people as an associate. And then as seats become available, qualified people will move into the vacant seats. So it's a good preemptive strike to deal with that, to kind of get that in line. And I've seen other commissions, especially smaller ones, started up too, to try to get friends of the commission so they can tailor and groom them to serve on a commission. Again, the terms are here. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I do want to talk about the officers section, which, the voting of the chairperson. And these are the duties that the chairperson typically does, what the vice chair would do, what the secretary does, and what the treasurer shall do. So they all lay that out, and pretty much, I believe, annually, I think, or depending on what Somerville requires, there should be an annual election of officers at, usually a typical time to do that. As well as some of the meetings. And again, this is where I kind of laugh because, 6 times a year, it's hard to get stuff done when you're only meeting 6 times a year. So most commissions are meeting 10 to 11 times a year. I don't think I have any commissions that are meeting double, like twice a month. So, but regular meetings shall be, quorum consists of the majority of members, right? So it's depending on your number. This is for 7 members, would be 4 members would need to be present. Again, I'm not going to go through all of these, but meeting minutes and special meetings can be special meetings can be called by the chair or by any 3 members. So there's a lot of things here. The rules of order, Robert's rules of order, are what's typically followed as the procedural. And obviously, we've got open meeting law requirements that, again, you tailor this, but you want to make sure that things are posted appropriately with the open meeting law as well. And there's a nice built-in section to allow for, should there be a want to change some of the former bylaws, there's an article there for allowing for memberships and how that is processed through a 2/3 vote. Again, you can set that up however you would like. These are just samples, but it's a great starting point for new commissions or commissions that are looking to just make sure they're in line with what 8J and what the state would recommend as bylaws for commissions on disabilities. Yes.
This is Bonnie. I have a question about the officers.
Sure.
So, for instance, like I know City Council has an outside secretary that is not a council member. Is this something that commissions are required to have the officer positions filled by members, or is that something that can be modified by the bylaws?
Let me just make sure. Are you, like, for the chairperson, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer position?
Yeah, I mean, so for our commission specifically, we've had some issues in terms of a secretary because
Okay.
we have not had a lot of people on our commission historically, and we have had a lot of people with disabilities that would prevent them from being able to focus on the meeting and take decent notes.
Okay.
And right now, our city liaison, or not city, our city appointee is our secretary, but sometimes that presents a conflict of interest because he is also the director of engineering and needs to recuse himself for some things, at which point we're kind of left scrambling of who's going to do that. And, we just kind of wonder if there's a way to modify bylaws, like if that's legally allowable, so that we could maybe have a city staff person or an associate member as an accommodation for disabilities to be able to be appointed secretary. Or
I almost think that doesn't need a change to the bylaws. I think that in Situate, again, I'm using mine, I've been on that Situate commission for about, I think now I'd have to look back, but I think at least 15 years, I think at this point. And when we were first starting, not first starting out, but when I first joined, there was a person from the town that would attend the meeting and take minutes and do all of that stuff, and wasn't a voting member, but it was kind of nice because we could get some in, some of the, when we'd ask about, oh, the DPW is doing something, this person was a great resource to say, yeah, they're going to be building up a new sidewalks and start, it'd fill us in on some of the extra details that we as a commission might not know about. But we lost that person about 4 or 5 years ago. So now we've had to have a secretary that actually does the minutes, and that's fallen to me as the recording secretary on the commission. So, but it doesn't, so one, if you're arguing it as an accommodation to a member who might be voted in as a secretary, or as a opportunity for the commission as a whole, having a staff person assigned, that might be something to investigate, to see if there's someone that might be able to attend the meeting, every month, right, at 6:30 p.m. to take the minutes. They may also, you may also want to ask if an associate member could be, maybe not the recording secretary, but take the minutes for someone voted in as their secretary, or just to take the minutes so that all of the members can focus on the matters at hand while not worrying about taking notes. Just simple as that, really, as, it's not that the secretary, I know personally for me, when I'm trying to capture the minutes or the notes, I might be missing a topic or missing a, not being able to focus fully on what's being discussed. And I would really want to, because I can weigh in on some of those things and things like that. So it might make sense to approach your appointing authority, which I think is the mayor, right? Or city council, whoever your liaison might be there at city council, to see about seeing if one of the record, as a, I don't want to say an accommodation, but as a modification to the procedure for the commission, can we allow someone who's not a voting member take the minutes? And that's something we need to run up the flagpole. I just don't know.
Sure. All right,
And
thank
they
you.
may come back with, yes, you need that in your bylaws, then that'll correct me. Please let me know if that happens, because I'd like to know that from a practical experience from it.
Hey,
But
Bonnie, it's Ginny. Can I share what PTAC does with regard to handling the minutes and that sort of thing?
Sure, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Generally, our secretary every month alternates members of the committee to go ahead and take minutes. We do have city officials who attend our meetings regularly, and on more than one occasion, we've asked Brian to make presentations. I attend this commission as PTAC's vice chair, and find myself sometimes trying to figure out what slides really are, for a very obvious reason. I'm totally blind.
Okay.
So, but our secretary assigns every month someone on the committee to go ahead and take meeting minutes, and city officials attend to make presentations to us every month.
that is an option as well. I believe there are some membership, Bonnie, that may have difficulty with that. So you want to make it a fair process. So
Yeah,
if there's an associate that really wants to work it out, I mean, you probably could do it. Just check with the higher beings, that the higher ups, to make sure that that would be appropriate and allowed legally for the minutes. I don't know if it has to be a personal member of the commission, but then I would expect that as an accommodation to the commission, or at least as a help out to the commission, someone taking minutes outside of the board itself might be helpful.
thank you.
All right. So we've got the positions here. We've gone over the meetings. We've gone over some of the amendments. And now when we talked about HA, there were those 6 listed items of kind of goals or responsibilities or things that a commission can take on. So you as a commission and a commission made up of volunteers, you have only the expertise that you bring to the table here. If you don't have an architect on the commission, reviewing architectural plans might be a little bit of an issue, although there are some tools that you as a commission could go to or sign up for or send a member to. The New England ADA Center does do plan review trainings that could, maybe help you understand how to look over a set of plans. But if you don't, if that could be something that you might not have, like the expertise you might not have at the table. So these goals, some of these goals might be, okay, well, goal 1, granted, I'm going to say you can do that, but let's try goal 2, and I'll come back to it. But let's say you as a commission.
Jeff, can I just say, if you're talking about a specific goal, can you please, instead of saying goal 1 and goal 2, just actually talk about the specifics, because we do have a couple of folks here who definitely cannot see this, and also you're moving quickly. So I just want to make sure people get the full content.
Okay, so yeah, no, thank you. And I appreciate that. And I'm sorry that I was going rapid fire there. So there are about 9 or 10 goals. I wasn't going to go over all of them, but I do want to talk about a couple and use a couple as some examples. So the first goal is ensure municipal services, programs, meetings, and employment opportunities are available and accessible to persons with disabilities. And underneath that, there are 6 bulleted items that talk about how that might happen. For example, meeting with the appropriate staff, the ADA coordinator, select board, mayor, city town planning staff, building inspector, other departments in town, making your presence known. That is something a commission does need to do, is to go to some of these big meetings and just introduce yourself as either the chair or representative sent on behalf of the commission to those meetings, to just have a minute to say, we're here to help and we're here to advise to these other town departments. You'd also be, potentially as a goal, surveying all municipal buildings, facilities, and sidewalks for access. That does take a skill. And that's where I would offer up our community access monitor training, as well as our potential, if people take the community access monitor training, we are now offering something called the advanced CAM training for members who have taken the 2-day CAM training that goes into deeper analysis of like the building history and really goes through case examples and really shows people how to measure stuff. And do these measurements and how to report them back. So it's a developing program we're doing, and we are setting up about 5 this year. And I will make sure that commissions are notified when slots open up for seats there. So there's goals on this. There's about 10 goals in this whole entire document. The first goal again lists 6 different items, but they may the first goal of ensuring municipal services, programs, and activities, prioritizing what needs to be done, especially the expensive building renovations, and be aware of new programs, services, or construction to work with those individuals to try to advocate for improving accessibility. Again, that's some physical, but don't forget about communication access. There's all of that stuff too. Making sure that there's, appropriate accommodations for individuals attending town meetings or wanting to participate in town government. And then there's underneath the kind of bulleted items that tells you how to accomplish that goal or suggestions in accomplishing that goal. We list a few examples, and not everyone has as many as the first goal here, but this one has about 6 or 7 goals, and I'm going to read the first 3. All public meetings should be held in accessible locations. That's obvious. That's an open meeting law requirement, but it's just something you as a commission should know about. Emergency services. Let me just make sure I'm reading the good ones. Emergency services such as police and fire departments should have telecommunication devices for people who are deaf or hard of hearing. From what I understand now, the 911, and I'm supposed to get some information from my one of my colleagues on this because they just got updated, but 911 system is changing a little bit. I believe they're accepting now text to 911, although I have to see, you need to check and see if Somerville's enrolled in that from the 911 commission or the 911 department at the state. But they are allowing now cell phones to do get to, rather than a central calling center, it'll be hopefully funneled to a local, what they call PSAPs, where the 911 calls go and get routed. So you hopefully with the cell phone calls to 911 should be going more locally rather than centrally, and then having them to redirect the call from a central location back to your local community. But they are also now starting up with text to 911. That is a very good tool. In the disability indicator form, I will come right back to you, Holly. I see your hand up. But the disability indicator form on that people will fill out to when you call 911 from your home phone or from your home, certain identifiers come up that you've allowed 911 to know about. So they're very general categories. They are typically mobility, hearing, vision, cognitive. They're very limited in what details they give. But if you do opt for that and you are calling from, it used to be a landline, the 911 operator would get a code up there so they could tell somebody approaching your residence or your building for some sort of 911 call, that they kind of know that they're approaching maybe someone who maybe have mobility concerns or someone who may not hear them knocking at the front door. So, there's things like that will help your first responders. So working with that, the 911 indicator form now does have a cell phone number that you can list as well. So that's kind of good. It's a big change that happened recently. It was just landlines that could be registered with your 911, but now it can be cell phones as well. So each goal that we list here talks about some of the ideas of reaching the goals. as well as giving some examples of how that goal might be reached or what examples they might show up. So with this, there are 10 goals here, and some of these goals may not be something that a commission has the expertise to deal with on the local commission. So what that means would be that, let's say increasing affordable accessible housing or accessible affordable housing. That's a hard task to overcome. And that may be something you as a commission says, we're not really going to be able to focus on this, although we will. Oh, I'm sorry, Holly, I promise I'll come back to you after this. That we'll work with our housing authority or work with developers and things like that. But this may be something, if we get questions or things like that, we may have to refer out to another entity.
Holly, your question, and then I want to chime in on this.
Okay, perfect. Holly, whenever you're ready. Sorry.
No, Bonnie, why don't you go now, because it's relevant to that. And mine was before. No worries.
I'm sorry. I'll come back.
That's all right.
Promise.
Yeah, so I think, as a commission, we've got a fair amount of expertise and a fair amount of interest in a lot of these things. And the things that we struggle with are the city recognizing that and incorporating our feedback. And, I'm wondering if you have thoughts on that, other commissions that maybe have struggled with similar, because we all understand that the goal of these state laws was to enable commissions to exist, and Somerville has adopted them, but I think there's a disconnect between adopting them and actually making good use of the commission, and that's kind of where we struggle. I think we know a lot of the things that need focusing on,
Okay.
but it's really making that connection between us wanting to do that work and the city wanting to value that work.
Okay, so here's where it can help, and maybe this is something that I can try to help you with offline as well. But I think the first step, if you haven't done it already, or as new members, or as chairs take over, and I'm Bonnie, I know you're there. I'm not sure how long you've been there or when the next chair might be taking over. However, but when a new chair is elected through the elections and things like that, it may make sense at that time to often show up at some of the regularly scheduled meetings and get on their agendas. And you may have already done that.
Yeah, there's not a lack of awareness.
Okay, all
I
right.
think everybody on city council and everybody in the mayor's office and most people that are department heads of a department in the city are certainly aware of my existence and the commission as a whole. We have one city councilor here this evening and many others aware and engaged and working really hard, but it all comes down to it's at the mayor's discretion as to whether or not to require city departments to work with us. And
that's pretty difficult. You are an advisory board. I mean, that is the first step, and to properly advise your appointing authority or your town or your city, really, you need to have those connections with the highway department or the housing authority, the school department, the town hall, a lot of different people and departments, pretty much all. You should be at the table at. There isn't anything you should be exempted from, because as a commission, you are representing, you're a voice of people with disabilities in your community. And that touches everything. It touches, business conducted at town hall, or I'm sorry, I'm saying town hall, but at city hall, or it actually, emergency planning is the commission part of that process. Are you working with the local emergency management director? There's a lot of different things that commissions, a lot of the departments that commissions can weigh in on, even though you're not an enforcement agency. You're a voice of reason and a voice of the community that may not have a voice to fight on behalf of their needs or their concerns the way that the Commission on Disability can. You do have a lot of members here and a lot of, I don't know necessarily the expertise, but some of the people I've seen, they appear like, I know Colin's a wealth of expertise. I don't know everybody here, but I do know a few, and there's some good expertise here at the table. So to not take that as to take that benefit that's being offered or being reached out to offer, that can be a little discouraging. because it's not like you're going to slap anybody across the wrist on if they did something wrong. You're just really there to be the extra set of eyes and the extra voice to make sure that people aren't being forgotten in any of the processes the town's running. So, and potentially even for small business, if that's where you, or local businesses, if that's where you wanted to put some of your focus as well. So working, you know, the primary ones I think are the city council would be where you'd want that collaboration. You'd also want it from, if you could get it from the mayor's office as well. I mean, they are the ultimate executive teams that can filter down your needs or your requests. So if they were to give you kind of a go-ahead to reach out to various boards and commissions, which you shouldn't really have to seek permission, but you know, I think since it's about 3 or 4 years old, you know, you may want to talk with your liaison from city council to say, you know, this is what we're thinking of doing and what we would want to do and how can we make this happen, would be really a first step. And, you know, some of the big ones.
Excuse me, Jeff, can I interject? My name is Harriet. Many years ago, I worked at MOD and I'm blind as well. And here's the thing. I've worked in city politics for 4 years and gotten 4 new people on city council with Our Revolution Somerville. Now, the issue is this. If the mayor doesn't consent or recognize us as a valid commission, nothing will happen. And often nothing does happen. So we may just be screwed by our own charter. But anyway, have you not encountered this issue where city council can be very supportive of what we're trying to bring forward as what people with disabilities need from the city itself? I mean, I'm very new and I'm really a visitor here, but I'm well aware of the frictions that are there and how ridiculous it is, if you'll excuse my bluntness. So have you not run into a place where in some fashion the commission is blocked by either the council or the mayor?
Oh, we've run into it. It's not I won't say it's super common, but it's not uncommon. It's not like rare. It's not a rarity. It does happen. It's whether they get spooked by something that got raised to them and they're nervous about it, or they had a bad maybe experience with a prior commission that they feel, oh, we gotta, you know, we really have to rein them in and not and control them. That, you know, the intent of the commission is advisory. So there should really be no hard feelings between anybody and no willingness to accept the work of the commission because it's advisory. It's up to, you know, you are raising that up to the next level and it's ultimately up to them. And I actually, hang on one second. I want to make sure, I think we maybe lost the chair. So let me wait until, okay.
No, you didn't.
Related to penalties.
Okay.
Or
Well,
failure
you know,
to
this is where it
apply
gets difficult.
Here, the ADA.
So this is Bonnie. Can we please? I think we're coming up on.
I know, and I'm
we
sorry.
have like maybe 5 more minutes to devote to this, so I don't want to go too far into the weeds on this. I think I would be interested in a further conversation offline that I can then report back on what those other commissions did and whether or not they were able to, you know, sort of fix that relationship with the city. But I think we're not going to get all of the answers we want to have tonight. And I want to make sure that if there's anything else you really wanted to present, Jeff, you have a couple of minutes to do that.
Well, I think we're having a really good conversation, so I don't want to delve off this. All of these things, like after this one, it's really going to be moved on to supporting documents. There's really good documents out there that will help you understand Title II responsibilities for a city and town. There's the ADA checklist from the New England ADA Center that would help you evaluate, like if the commission got asked to, hey, can you look at the bathroom to see if it complies with the ADA? Well, there's a good 30, 40 questions that will ask you yes or no questions that will let you do that little audit of it. And it will give you a yes or no. So it's very simple. So some of those things I was showing, but I think I really want to let me stop sharing because I would like to come back to the group and make sure whatever time you want to give me, Bonnie, and that could be 5 more minutes to kind of touch upon. And yes, I would very much look forward to an offline discussion with you. And then we can figure out how MOD can help support the commission in Somerville. So the best we can. All right.
Great. Thank you. I see Colin with a raised hand. And if there's time, I've got a follow-up question, but I want to make sure that anybody else who had something can get in there as well.
Sure.
Thank you so much. This is probably too big a subject to discuss right now, but do the materials include information on the municipal ADA improvement grant?
It does. Or it will. I will make sure it is. There is a link to the program. We are currently, the grant program is currently closed for this cycle because we're dealing with awards now, and we expect the FY23 cycle to open up in August of this year.
Great.
And you'll find a link there. There should be somewhere there. If you're interested in being personally notified of when this grant cycle opens up or when we start advertising it, if you can email me directly, I'll pass it on to our access specialist who is helping me with the grant program to add you to a notification list. So you might get 50 of them, but I'd rather you get notified 50 times than not get notified at all, because this grant program is a wonderful program.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I know it's highly competitive, but I think it's something the city hasn't always applied for, and I'd love to see it be something we apply for every year. There are definitely things we could use it for.
Definitely. Oh, definitely. And once you see what we can offer and what we've funded in the past, it's a great program. So I know we run it and I'd say it's a great program, but it really is. We're giving like $2 million back to the Commonwealth. So back to communities that need it for barrier removal or communication communication fixes. So, and Holly, let me come back to you. I know you've been waiting. I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. That's fine. Our from what I've read, we are subject to open meeting laws.
Yes.
And
you are fully as a board and commission, you are obligated to the open meeting law stuff. So
okay, so therefore all things like we're being recorded right now, we should have access to those, and they should be posted online to the public.
The recordings, I don't know. That I haven't really delved too deeply on the open meeting law and recordings. It doesn't necessarily mean that these recordings need to be posted. They could be, and they can be, and they will be probably. But if they are posted, I don't think the open meeting law, I think the open meeting law is silent on recording of it, except when an individual wants to come and approach Bonnie or to the chair and say, I'd like to record this program. The town might be doing this just for keeping a record of it and also posting town meetings online through various portals, or the city, I mean. But was that where you're going with the question, or no?
I just wanted to understand, from what I've read, open meeting law absolutely is our swim lane. But also we don't have, when we've called like a special meeting recently, and that's not an executive meeting.
Right.
So that is the only thing that I can see. If you had an executive meeting, that would be excluded of open meeting law.
Well, I have to be careful with that, though. There are very specific reasons to go into executive session, but that also requires certain minutes to be taken and certain outcomes to be explained of why you're going into executive session and what was the result as you come out of executive session, while keeping confidentiality and things like that. So that wouldn't be recorded, I don't believe, because that would be separate. But a special meeting would be treated just like if you call a commission meeting because you needed to vote on membership and you needed it done by tomorrow and you had to have a special meeting tomorrow, you might not have time because you have to post it 48 hours in advance, and Somerville might require longer posting, more than 48 hours, but that has to be posted just like a public meeting. Minutes have to be taken at special meetings and things like that. So,
and since 8J is adopted and we are a municipality that accepts federal funding, more than $1, that sort of establishes a commission in the first place. Aren't we, in a sense, federally mandated to exist?
Well, Section 504 is very similar, or it's tied to federal fines, if that's federal funding of a municipality, if that's what you were going with. It's kind of the backbone of some of the disability rights movements, right? So it's 504 obviously came before the ADA. So, and 504 is very similar. It has very similar administrative requirements for those programs. And it covers the entire municipality if there's $1 of federal funds coming in. However, the ADA isn't tied to any sort of monies. And I would almost think the ADA more in line links up to adding a commission on disability as an advisory board than even 504, but they're both federal laws. So I will tell you though, there are not too many commissions on disabilities than anywhere else in the country though. I don't believe that they're that active out there. So it's not a federal thing that I know of or that I've heard of, but there is, some of the backing or some of the reasons for those laws and regulations fall right in line with the mission of a commission on disabilities. So you're definitely correct in that. in that aspect. All right. And Bonnie, I think you had a follow-up. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody.
Yes, but Crystal also raised a hand,
Oh,
so I'd
cool.
like
All
to go
right.
to them.
Yes, Crystal.
Hi, this is Crystal. I also wanted to ask if there was an equity issue there or a legal equity issue, since other city meeting videos are available online, and I've never seen the meetings for this commission available online in video form. I'm not sure why. I am also new to this meeting, but as someone who's trying to catch up, I would find that more accessible, and certainly the other meetings of the city being available, it feels like an equity issue to me, but I don't know about the legal ramifications.
Again, I would, so everything I've talked about here so far that I know of isn't mandating that a Commission on Disabilities meetings be videotaped and be posted online. So in fact, in Situate, we don't record our meetings, partly because if the public is coming to us and they have some, I mean, it is a public meeting, don't get me wrong. So doing a public video is very accommodating, but some commissions don't always record their meetings. So, but if you are recording it, I think it would make sense that it would be posted, but I just don't know if open meeting law, since you know, it's like, if you do it, you have to do this then. I don't know if that's what open meeting law would say about if you record it, it then needs to be up on your website. That is something I can look into with the general counsel at MOD to see if that's something there. But if there's something obvious, I will report it back to you about that, if open meeting law is requiring. I just don't know if it does. And I just, you know, every time I come to a commission meeting, there's usually a unique question. So that one I'm going to have to follow up on.
Thank you. Councillor Klingon?
Yeah, thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to add some clarity to the discussion that's happening right now around the recordings and so on. I don't have a definitive answer, but I can just give a little bit of background. So right now, due to the pandemic, that we are operating virtually under the governor's under an act by the governor. In that statement that we make, it says that these meetings will be posted at a later time. So that's one separate thing with these recorded meetings that are virtual. The council itself, at some point, decided to have all of its committee meetings recorded and then uploaded. That, as far as the commissions and different commissions and commissions and other
yep, boards and commissions, right?
Boards, thank you. That was the word I'm looking for. Boards. I'm like, not committees. Boards and commissions. I believe that would probably fall to the administration, mainly because, like, our clerk's office, we have our, the clerk's office are the ones that handle the recording of the meetings as well as the minutes, and then they work with the communications department to post them. But ultimately, so when we go back to in person, that's going to be an issue whether or not, there's going to be a hybrid version of all of these meetings, or whether or not, even if there isn't a hybrid, if they're recorded and then posted. But I would say just to the quick point and answer, as far as these meetings that have happened during the pandemic, I believe most of them have been recorded, and the ones that have been recorded should be posted online.
Thank you, Councillor Klingon. All right. Thank you.
Yeah,
so
I think
much.
you guys have more stuff to get to, right, on your stuff. So
yeah.
So Bonnie, what I would just offer up, just fire off an email to me and we'll set up a time to chat. And then if I need to come back to a commission meeting or whichever, we can work that out as well.
Great. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you all. It's good. Colin, I know it's been a while, but it's been good to see you. So I'm glad to see you.
Like 5 years. Great to see you.
And Holly, I think I've seen you around as well. So nice to see you. And some of I think other people I've seen. It's tough. Yeah. Faces blend together. So, but have a great night, and I will talk to you guys soon. So you get an email from me later, probably tomorrow, close of business, or by the end of the week at the latest. All right.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thanks.
Next order of business, I will do a very, very brief report. So at the last special meeting, we voted Pauline Downing in as an associate commissioner, and all agreed that we'd like to recommend her as a full commissioner. So I did draft that recommendation and sent that to Adrian. And I was informed by the city, by Adrian and Hannah from the mayor's office, that the city is not currently acting on recommendations. We are going to get, after I'm done, a report from Adrian on where those commission appointments stand. But I will say that I've been told by the mayor's office that once the posting is up, they will leave it open for 4 weeks and anybody is welcome to apply again. And Hannah has said that any materials that were used for our evaluation purposes can be submitted, and that should be sufficient. So I am happy to facilitate putting in Henry and Pauline's materials. And Harriet has also expressed interest, and I will be working with her to get questions answered so that we can vote on whether or not she would like to be an associate commissioner at the next meeting, and also Jamie as well. So lots of interest, and I think it still will be a little bit of time before anybody is appointed as a full commissioner, but that's where it stands. And I wanted to let you all know that the recommendation was made. Sorry, I'm just looking at the agenda now. And I shared with you all, and it was attached to the agenda and meeting materials on the city website, the National ADA Center Effective Communications PDF. That's just talking about accommodations that are available federally and what cities' responsibilities are in terms of communication access. So I wanted to make sure everybody had that. I'm not going to bring it up now, given the interest of time. And then the next thing before moving on to the appointment update is voting Colin in as an associate commissioner. So would somebody like to motion for that? Somebody who's not the chair.
Brian Polstwaite moves for Colin to be voted in as an associate commissioner to the Somerville Commission for Persons with Disabilities.
I second that motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, and I see a raised hand from Leon as well, and from Brian, so the motion passes unanimously. Welcome back, Colin.
Thank you. Henry made a very persuasive case for me to round. Thank you for reaching out about that. So yeah, happy to keep helping out, at least for for the time being, certainly. Bonnie while he's still around to share, and yeah, hoping you can get some good things done.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you, Henry, we appreciate that. All right, so I am going to pass it to Adrian.
Chair Dennis, I won't take much time because you covered a lot about the appointment process, since you did have some communication from the mayor's office recently. Bonnie is correct. The mayor's office is still on pause with that to evaluate the process, not only for this commission, but all active commissions in the city of Somerville, to allow for more equity, inclusion, and access across the board. With that said, I have been told that they are hoping to reopen that process as early as next week. There will be a press release. It will be posted, of course, online. And I believe as well printed and put in libraries and other city places, so we can have open access for interested parties to apply and go through that process. With that said, of course, with all the conversation with accommodations, if anybody who is interested needs help in any way or an accommodation, that is part of my role at the city to help facilitate that so they can have access to that process. And of course, utilizing the resource that is the chair of this commission, and anybody else to help with that. So that's all I had on that portion. The other thing that was mentioned a bit earlier, thanks to Jeffrey, is the accessible parking fines fund. And Bonnie did share sort of the history with that. I have spoken with the treasurer, Edward Bean, with the city of Somerville, and he is strongly recommending that we all work together with our help to create a budget for this funds, because it is pretty significant given the size of Somerville and the parking fines that have been collected. And there is, thanks to our guest speaker, things you can do with that, as we've been told. Creating the budget would allow you to sort of map out and have a strategic plan about where you want to see the use of this money, and also would allow that to be efficient in that process, that you could maybe host an event, as Jeffrey said, and then you could say, we're hosting this event on such and such day, and we need a speaker, and we need all of these things. And then it goes through, and we spend the money, and we host the event. And so that discussion does need some time in order for you all to brainstorm and think about what you would like to see happen with those funds. And given also what Jeffrey said, perhaps involving some other city department leaders to maybe welcome those to the conversations, to maybe collaborate. If that's something you want to do, that is up to you. But as I have told Chair Dennis, it probably needs to be a pretty lengthy conversation. I don't want to say that it could take a whole meeting, or we would have to have a special meeting, because I want to give that choice up to this body. But I would strongly recommend that we either have a meeting later this month or early in April, or devote a pretty good chunk of the agenda next month to begin that discussion, because we are approaching very much in budget season, as I believe you all know.
Thank you, Adrian. I have a quick comment on that, and then I
Sure.
saw Holly and then Leanne. Yeah, we are approaching budget season, but I think it's clear that these funds are separate from the city budget, and they are revolving funds. So I don't think it's critical that we have an entirely laid out plan on how we're going to spend every dollar, because the funds exist for our use. So the more critical piece from a city perspective, I think, is ensuring that these funds are in a separate account, which to this point, we have not been assured of that. Nor have we been told explicit numbers of what those funds look like, when the funds came in, how much they generally receive on an annual basis. We heard one number quite a while back, but that was unclear for how many years it was. So I think that's kind of the critical piece in terms of where we sit right now. And that's separate from how we're going to spend the funds. But I don't think we need to be tied to budget season, because this is not a line item in the budget. Holly?
Sorry, finger issues. Yeah, this is Holly Bonnie. I agree with what you've said, that we're not required to have a budget aligned with the city's budget. And also what the commission does with those funding is at our discretion. There's certainly things that we can and can't do, but we're not guided by the city to spend it on something, like it's our fund. We don't have a report of how much it is. We don't have a report of I'm not as much concerned about the account it's in, but we have no documentation. We can't even get a list of where these handicap parking spots are. So I feel like we just don't have the right information. And we also have been waiting months to see this start rolling. And the Crystal, I think, posted a link to a news story about, tying it to a piece of legislature and then raising the fines. But it was a little bit confusing how it was worded. So I'm just curious, Adrian, if you know about that, that article, and also when we will have access to the data. And I think having a plan is good, but I don't think it should be anything that gets in the way of moving forward.
Agree? I certainly don't disagree with you, Holly. I am just passing on information that I've been told by our treasurer, that it is a separate budget for these funds. It's not a line item in the bigger budget, but they would just like to, for me to work with you to see an outline of how you would like to use those funds. So
Why don't we work directly with the treasurer? That's what I don't understand that.
This is Bonnie. I'm going to point out we have just a few minutes left.
Sure.
I would like to discourage the use of the word budget. I understand that's what the treasurer is saying to you, but it's not a budget, it's a revolving fund. And those are distinct things. Because a budget suggests that there's a set yearly amount, and that's not what this is. It's going to be based on what the fees collected are. So what we do with it is distinct from there is a budget for us, if that makes sense. So Leanne and Councillor Klingon, if we can make comments brief, unfortunately.
This is Leanne. I just had, I think definitely this is a conversation around the day, but I had a couple quick clarifying questions that I think will make it so we can actually think about this before the next meeting. One of them, as Bonnie and Holly already mentioned, we have no idea how much money we're actually working with, and that makes it really hard to try to plan anything, because I have no sense if I'm trying to figure out what do we want to spend, $2,000 on, or what do we want to spend $200,000 on. We can't really start planning anything until we know what we're actually working with. So if it's possible to get us at least a ballpark number prior to when we actually have the larger discussion, that would be really helpful. And then just a couple questions around what we are allowed to spend the money on, which I had wish I'd asked earlier when Jeff mentioned it.
This is Bonnie. Some documents have been sent out about that, and I think we can share those links again so everybody has that, but we can get further into the weeds on that discussion at the next meeting.
I just want to mention them really quickly in case it's something that needs some research. Just one question around what constitutes public. So would something that is the public schools would be allowed to work with that, or is that because it's not for everybody, it's just for the school age people, would that not qualify? And then also, if there are programs that need to be administered, would we have to do that administration ourselves, or could that be sort of contracted out to either someone in the city or some other organization? So those are the things that I'm wondering about. That is all I have for now.
Thank you. Councillor Klingon?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So I know that Adrian is the point person on this now, but originally when I put the order in, I had talked to Brian, and the one thing we do know is that when they started the collecting from, we couldn't get them to go back a few years of fines, but certainly since the fund was set up. So as far as I remember, that was, it would have been last, I don't know, end of summer, or I don't know, Brian, if you recall when that was supposed to, essentially when that we were supposed to start keeping track of those fines.
This is Brian, Counselor. I don't recall specifically what that time frame is. We may have it in the minutes. We can go back and look, but I believe it was over the summer that we discussed it, or beginning of the last spring.
Right. So I mean, with that information, basically, in my mind, Madam Chair, basically they, if they can give you a start date, ultimately everything that my understanding of it, everything that was collected as a fine for non-placard parking, that money would go into a fund, and that you all would have access to that, be able to decide what was to happen with that fund. And that can mean anything from, if you wanted to put an RFP out for something, but ultimately that money, and as you just heard the gentleman say, who came to speak, that that can be interpreted. That's at your discretion to be interpreted. So I'm just, what I'm hearing now seems a little bit different than what I think the way I had been told, the way it was interpreted. So I'm hoping we can all get on the same page about this. I know that, so I mean, since last summer, I don't know what the numbers look like, but it's got to be some money there to do some good. So hopefully, and I'd like to know if there is going to be some sort of, restriction or how the administration sees this going forward. And I can, take this to the council and put in some board orders, but I just want to know more about what the vision is, because I had an entirely different, seems like I had an entirely different idea of understanding of the way it was supposed to go.
Thank you, Councillor Klingon. Yeah, I think you and the commission are on the same page on it's supposed to go how the general law is written, and perhaps myself and you can, with Adrian's assistance, start a communication chain with the treasurer so that we can get some clarity on what the funds are and how we put in the requests for spending them. I'd like to not have to file a public records request to find out how much of the funds are there and when we can get reports on them, because as Holly mentioned, we've been asking for quite some time and we've never gotten follow through on that. So I will do that follow up. Thank you so much, everyone. We are at time. Another packed agenda. This conversation will definitely continue next month, but I hope that by then we have some numbers to work with, because I think that's going to be critical, as Leon said, figuring out how we spend them, because there's a big difference between 2,000 and 20,000. So look forward to that discussion.
Madam Chair, real quick, if I could just, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just on what I was saying earlier, I did post in the chat what it is that the different commissions read, and it doesn't actually state that it will be posted. But I imagine that every one of these meetings that's been recorded, there's no reason why it shouldn't be posted. But it doesn't, you don't state that in the same way as the council states it. So I just wanted to make that clear that there may be different rules for you all.
Thank you, Councillor Klingon. I think there's again a discrepancy between the commission's feelings and the administration's feelings. And there is no issue in terms of our city clerk or OML office posting it. The issue is we don't have access to the recordings ourselves. So they have said they would be happy to post it if they're provided. And I know Adrian was supposed to look into whether or not we can post these recordings. I have not heard anything back on that. I would like to, because I think we would all like there to be the recordings. From an access standpoint, there are many of us that have executive function or hearing loss or other disabilities that make engaging with the presentation and remembering and looking at the meeting notes and approving them really difficult without having the recording to refer back to. So I hope that we get an answer on that soon. So unfortunately, we do need to end, but thank you everyone for a robust discussion. I look forward to seeing you all next month. Holly says in the chat that we have room to improve the communication and transparency of our commission, and I would agree wholeheartedly with that. So goals. All right, I am going to, I don't need to motion to end the meeting, do I? I'm sorry that I forget this every time.
This is Brian. You do need a motion.
I do, okay. I motion to end this meeting. And
I'll second.
Great. All in favor?
All in favor. Yeah.
Aye. Great. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.